Welcome to Lit Happens, Unpacking Senior English. I'm Adriel.
And I'm Belle.
And this is our very first podcast episode. I have to say I'm a little bit nervous.
A little bit's an understatement, isn't it?
I mean, you would think as like high school English teachers, I mean, we are very used to being in front of people and talking for a living, but this is a whole other ballgame,
100%.
I think. Anyway, let's get started. We thought we would introduce ourselves first, give you a bit of a sense of our background, what it is we're trying to get at, what we're trying to achieve. So do we want to start first with like who we are and why we're here and what we're trying to do here,
Yeah,
Adriel?
I think so. Let's get into a little bit of our background and move forward with that. So I guess I'll take the wheel there in terms of starting off. We've been teaching for about 10 years now.
Yep.
In the New South Wales sort of education system and are very keen when it comes to our subject area of English.
Definitely.
But it's been 10 years of learning and growth with many mentors, and I guess the journey has definitely been fun. I think that's probably the word that we're looking at when we're looking at our HSC English journey in particular. I know I've mentioned HSC there, but there's definitely some things that we do need to consider when it comes to what has helped us out along the journey. And I think that's what one of the aims is for this podcast, being young teachers. Well, not so young anymore. What are some of the things that have helped us along this educational journey? And as I've sort of touched on, we've had some great mentorship, great sort of camaraderie with each other. And we've got so much to give you guys, especially if you are starting off. So, yeah, again, like I mentioned, and I'm talking a bit here, but my educational journey or teaching started off at Elderslie High School in 2014. And, we've had the privilege of teaching 7 to 12 across many of these years, and in the last few years we've had the standard course, the studies course, the advanced course, and definitely enjoyed all of them, from the highs of the band sixes to adding value, I guess, in terms of how do we encourage students that may not be working at those levels, and it's definitely been some of the great things.
Just trying to lift them up, right, so that everybody can aim as high and achieve as high as they can.
Exactly right. And I think that's one of the things that we look at when we're teaching. We can put too much pressure on the mark itself.
That's true. So true.
But I guess as English teachers, and we've both probably figured this out, it's more of a case of how are you adding value to the students. And hopefully this journey that we're going to be going along with this little podcast that we've started here will help teachers, budding teachers, and students along the way understand this.
Yeah.
Because it's important, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And maybe even, experienced teachers that, we're so bogged down. It's such a dynamic job. We know that your heads are everywhere. It's one of those where you're like, do I mark first? Do I take roll first? Do I answer email first? So we were hoping to achieve this podcast where we can talk and we can chat, because we love that. We're English teachers. All English teachers are down for a good yarn.
Good talk.
That's it. But we were hoping that
we know everything, don't we?
Well, yeah. We're the English teachers at our school. Yeah.
100%.
That's it. We were just hoping if we could just give some pointers, things that we know have worked because of, like you said, the wonderful experience people we've worked with, and then the experience that we've been able to gain to lighten your load.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's so important, especially like we say in this day and age. How about, I've said a bit about my sort of beginning in the teaching industry. How about yourself, Belle?
I think you pretty much said it all, but just on a more personal, Adriel has been a colleague of mine for many years now. I've also been, working in Department of Education as an English teacher for over a decade. And like you said, blessed beyond blessed to have mentors and not only colleagues but friends. Yeah. When you're in the trenches, and let's face it, especially, that kind of high school, public school space, you are in the trenches and it can be hard, but my God, does it teach you an array of tools, not only just in teaching and delivering content, but how to engage and how to interact. And then also moving beyond, like you said, just the results. Yeah. Because you're right. It's not just the results. It's about connecting and making meaning with not just literature, but English and language in general, as I think it's so important. Even if we move into these digital technologies and social media, language is it.
It's key, isn't it,
really
for moving forward. And it's like a skill that I guess as English teachers, we are trying to implement into our kids. It's a lifelong learning sort of value 100%. There, isn't it? So, it's fantastic. I think some of the information that we come across in a day-to-day sort of setting can be overwhelming.
Totally.
And I guess that's one of the goals of this podcast.
I think so.
Is how do we unpack some of those intricacies for a Year 12 teacher or a senior teacher in particular.
There's a lot to unpack, isn't there?
So much. And, we know your time frames.
Yeah, that's right.
We know those time frames.
We live them, yeah.
So hopefully we are going to help you guys out with a little bit of our knowledge and what has helped us achieve some great results in this space across the years.
And teach in a way that we feel happy with. Like, I know we've worked alongside for a long time. Our aim is always, did I leave imparting what I felt was like the best thing, the most valuable thing? We always talk about how do we get students to connect to the text we're teaching. And I mean, yes, there is an exam and, yes, there is an ATAR and all of that. And that obviously plays a role. But how do we get them to engage deeply, meaningfully?
100%.
Yeah.
That's so key, isn't it? It's that word engagement. It's something that in this day and age, we sort of have maybe this negative mindset going to the classroom. Well, what are the kids going to want to know about this old text for?
What would they like this for?
So we've all heard this question, haven't we?
Yeah.
So when I'm going to use Shakespeare in my everyday.
What do I need to know this for?
Exactly.
I'm doing X, Y, Z with my life.
Exactly. And I guess sort of that's hopefully what we'll intend to unpack a little bit further moving forward.
And we have a lot of strategies, not just between us, but in the teams and the faculties that we've worked at. Like, as teachers, you all know it is a team effort.
100%.
I mean, we all have our individual class, but you're working as a team to create this learning process and to create that engagement. I think we've got a lot of gems along the way.
Can I sort of just say this for like budding teachers? One of the things that we often find when we start our journey is we're too scared to ask the questions. We're too scared to seek help and advice. Yeah,
because you don't want to say, I'm annoying. I remember I used to always say to a dear teacher, friend, mentor of mine, I'm about to ask you a stupid question, and bless him, there are never stupid questions.
No silly questions.
All right, well, listen to this one because it may be now a stupid question. But, you're absolutely right. We're too scared to ask sometimes.
Too scared to ask. And I guess that's one of the things in our platform. We're hoping to be a bit more interactive with you guys as well. So eventually, if you do need to reach out and ask us and pick our brains, along with the many people we'll hopefully have on board to help us along the journey as well. I guess one of the goals of the podcast and the purposes is because we want to help these teachers enjoy teaching.
Yeah, love that. That's so true. Yeah.
Enjoy teaching, enjoying what you're doing and enjoying your love for literature. And it's something that starts off with us taking that step back, taking away those layers of pride, I like to say a lot of the times. Like I said at the beginning, I said us English teachers, we know everything, don't we? I hold that badge. I probably have the number 1 badge there.
You are so humble. It's hilarious you think that, but nonetheless, keep going.
But I think that's one of the things that we definitely want to encourage is definitely feel free to ask questions, shoot through emails. We'll be open to it as well as we move forward.
We'd love to hear what you guys think. Or something that you think that we can help with that it hasn't hit our mind just yet, but definitely something we could work through.
Exactly. But in saying that, I guess we can probably move on to what are some of the other goals in the podcast in terms of what our focuses will be?
I think, and this will be something that definitely evolves. Like it will evolve with your input and stuff. I think we're starting off with the senior English space. We know that it's term 1 or technically term 2 if you've got a HSC English class. So we're probably going to start with looking at the modules. What we want to do is, looking at what is your module B, looking at how do we break that down because, the syllabus, English is a very unique syllabus, isn't it, compared to the others.
100%.
It's not like I remember doing, for example, modern history and there's a very deliberate dot point. English is very different. You've got the module and the rubric.
Skills-based, isn't it? It's the skills.
And the rubric is everything. And it's I say to my kids when I've taught them, it's your Bible is what they're going to ask you.
Yeah.
And the way, not just about what they're going to ask you in an exam, but the way that you're going to best engage and interact and have that relationship with what you're learning is if you understand that lens through that rubric.
100%. Yeah. It's one of the things actually in HSC marking, which I've had the privilege to delve into a little bit, is you start off with basically, do you know your rubric inside out?
Yeah.
And that's going to be, as you've just mentioned, it's the core text, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's where your questions are derived from.
That's right.
The kids don't understand that. How do we understand that? The language in it?
How do we shape assessments to make sure we're hitting the rubric in preparation for the end goal, that end exam?
Exactly. So we're hoping to unpack that a little bit further, some of the ways that we've sort of gone about it, and it's been beneficial to us. I guess that one of the things that we want to mention is it's up to teachers to go out and try new things as well. So we've got so much to give, but it's up to you, in particular, to get out there and try these things. Be creative, be imaginative in your approaches to the classroom, because the passion that you show in the classroom is what then flows onto the kids.
Definitely.
And that's sort of one of those key tips that I've just mentioned there is, if you're not loving what you're doing, how are you going to expect your kids to love what you're doing? And I think that mindset is going to be quite important, isn't it?
And that flexibility, like you said, we're in the planning stage of, getting some resources out that we think you guys will love, that we think will help you break down what you've got to do or give you some more high leverage strategies. But ultimately, it's like you said, it's about adapting it, because as teachers, your students. They are your students.
That's right.
And if we just give that baseline, and then the possibilities could be endless.
It's endless. And it's like you've just mentioned, you have that base, you make the learning your own, and you adapt it. And that's hopefully what we're seeking to provide people with.
Definitely.
With one of the goals of this podcast is, in this day and age, I find that we can lose our voice when it comes to, the stringent nature of our work life in any educational setting. Well, we lose that creativity. And one of the core, I guess, fundamental principles of an English teacher is to be that creative, imaginative person. Yeah,
and to spark creativity and imagination in your students.
Exactly.
It's so easy, isn't it, to get bogged down into your day-to-day. You're like, I don't have time to do that. And we understand.
Exactly.
We understand. We're just hoping that we can bridge that gap. If we can give you some things and some tools, lighten that load and hopefully spark your creativity again as well.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I guess one of the things we probably want to sort of consider is, well, what sort of, like we've mentioned a little bit about our backgrounds, 10 years in the field. Do you have any success stories that you'd like to share with?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I've been pretty fortunate to have many different cohorts of students, and that's the beauty too, is like the senior English class you have they're never exactly the same.
Exactly.
And they'll all have their little budding personalities, and they'll all have the text that they love and the text that they're not into, or the text that they argued about the most and the text that they were like, oh, that's, I guess so, makes sense. I think what I love seeing is helping kids to see their process of their learning. Like, because it is a long haul thing. You all know, as senior English teachers, it's not just how you support them in the classroom, but, credit to you, it's the hours that you put in after, it's the process, it's the checking, it's the drafting, and I have been fortunate to teach a few students, who've come in going, I don't know if I'm going to do well. I don't know, I'm aiming for a band 5 and 6, but I don't know if I'm going to get there. And I had this one particular lovely young lady, and gosh, she was a workhorse. I think sometimes as English teachers, we say, are they like a natural English student? Are they not? And she was straight up, it's not my strong suit. English was her second language. My goodness, did she work, drafting, adapting, just trying to engage meaningfully. But the thing is, and I know that we've talked about it too, is that idea of that voice. How do you help that student develop their voice, their insight? Because in a marking perspective, that stands out in a marking center.
Definitely. That individual voice is definitely prescriptive. Generally, you'll find it in like the third paragraph there in each of those prescriptions documents.
That's right.
But yeah, that's fantastic. I love that idea of voice. And actually, you hit the nail on the head there a little bit. I know with one of my particular students, a few years back, And she was workhorse, like we say. We always love those workhorse students. And, the role of the teacher wasn't necessarily me feeding the content.
No, exactly.
It was me actually taking care of the student in regards to their mental well-being and their health. And that's another sort of facet. And one of the goals of this podcast is we're looking at learning holistically.
Yes.
From mental health all the way down to the ins and outs of how do we teach our content. And
that becomes a key if the student is aiming for that band 6, and like this student did over time, she put in the work and guess what, she got that 91 and it was incredible.
Exactly.
It's not about the band per se for me, it's about how that student feels. Did they achieve what they wanted to achieve, you know?
Exactly. And these are the things that many successful teachers have actually told us along the way. It's not I like to look at this sort of idea. It's the mark doesn't define the human being that you are.
Totally.
What defines you as a human being is that learning process.
Totally.
And if we can really embed that within the students and also yourselves as teachers moving forward as a focus, you're going to see some wonderful results in all aspects of life.
Yeah, because a lot of them want to do well.
Exactly.
A lot of your students, they sort of knuckle down because they can see that finish line and they know what their next aspiration and step is. What we're hoping is to give you the tools to help guide them, and develop it that way.
100%. So, look, I guess, our target audience for you guys will be, how do we help as young teachers that have been in the industry for a while but are needing that fresh spark, maybe looking at things from a different perspective. Hopefully we can provide that for people along these, this journey that we've just embarked on.
Don't we all love that word as English teachers? The journey.
Oh my goodness, who was there teaching that? Oh goodness.
Who still has those textbooks in their staff rooms? Come on, let's be honest here. We hoard like nobody's business.
Everything these days.
But I think as well, like, I know I was inspired by these brilliant teachers. And like brilliant as in the teachers that I remember that are still, in my heart are those teachers who listened and gave you that time and tried to work with you on that, more personalized level. And we know it's hard. I know that's hard. Yeah. We know what your workload is. But just that idea of, I'm here, I hear your voice, let's expand. How do we develop that? And, those a couple of teachers that I'm thinking of from my own high school years, they loved their subject. Yeah. It's like what you said before. And that's what I remember.
I love it.
They loved it.
Yeah.
They loved it with their soul, and every day they came in, they were just so excited and happy let's look at this, and what about this approach, what about that idea? And I think that's the type of passion we're trying to re-spark in ourselves and inspire maybe in you guys that are going to come along the journey.
100%. I think, one of the things one of my mentors told me when I first started my teaching journey, history head teacher at the time, because, in our first 2-3 years, oh my goodness. Even the first week, we probably think, I'm quitting.
Yeah.
I'm ready to quit.
What do they say? Sink or swim? It's like, no, I'm sinking.
I'm ready.
Drown,
I'm ready to throw it in. What am I doing? What did I waste 4 years doing a master's degree for? But he did say this. He said, dude, every time, he didn't use the word dude. I should say. He said, young man. Young man.
That sounds like him.
Yeah, that sounds probably a bit better. But he's a young man. Remember why you teach. And he said every sort of time you step into that classroom, you have a privilege to shape the next generation, and you're accessing that well of enthusiasm. You've got to make sure you keep your well all to the brim, and you've got to access that well of enthusiasm.
It's beautiful.
And it's something that I think as teachers, it's profound there. It sounds metaphorical and all that, but we can sort of take that.
We can create a HSC creative piece out of that.
I know, but oh my gosh, when you actually look at like the seriousness of what he's saying and whatnot, it's true. It's hard in this day and age to access and continually access that well of enthusiasm. Yeah. But we need to. And hopefully we can inspire you guys and just help you along the way. I think that's going to be the important thing.
Absolutely.
We'll be shooting out a few things, and if you guys are on board with the journey, feel free to, share this along with people as well.
Yeah, love that. The more we can help,
we've got so much to give.
We do.
We've got so much to give. We've got so much to hopefully impart.
Yes.
Or impart into people's lives.
Yeah, the things that were passed on, given to us by mentors as well.
Exactly right. But yeah, look, it's going to be an awesome time. And I guess one last thing that I probably would like to sort of touch on, which we haven't sort of looked at too much, being English teachers, what are some of our favourite texts?
Oh, that's a good question. Like on the current prescriptions?
Current prescriptions.
Artist of the Floating World.
Great. Ishiguro, right?
Ishiguro, Advanced Module B. And that was a text that I started teaching because you guys will understand, often there's other teachers teaching with you.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily always get the option to pick whatever you want to teach or to pick the study of pattern. And, in time we'll definitely break down what that pattern is, what things look like. But you don't always get to pick. And so, but I, in that youthful teacher space, I was like, I'll teach whatever. Like, I'm happy to learn. Like, you're still in that learning phase. I'll teach whatever. And my goodness, that novel, every time I teach it, it's that beautiful novel where there's something new that comes out every time.
It's so good, isn't there? There's new perspective. I mean, I've had a similar experience with The Merchant of Venice.
Love that one too.
I'm going to be honest with you. I hated it the first 2 times I read it. I always say this to the kids, it's actually for another tip for anyone that, sir, where am I going? Sir, miss, why am I, doing Shakespeare? I'm not going to use this later on. And this is the interesting thing. I say, sometimes you don't need to like what you're reading.
That's it. So true.
But you can appreciate good literature.
100%.
Yeah. And it's like anything in life. It's what merit do we find in this? And that's sort of the angle that I often take with a lot of the students.
And that's the way in.
Exactly.
And not only that then shapes their personal insight and give them that
exactly.
voice.
It challenges them to, look at what is it that this text, how can this text add value to my life? And I think that's one of the things that The Merchant of Venice did for me. What does a Jewish moneylender and, this royal merchant have to do with my current life? And then you read into it, you get into that trial scene and you sort of delve into some of the awesome progress in regards to, some of the contemporary issues that we have these days that are so relevant. I mean, future budding lawyers, people that are looking at rights and responsibilities and ethics and values. And these are fantastic things. You can see, like, I'm ready to teach right now. But
I'm just going to move off the screen for a second.
but it's fantastic. And this is sort of the passion that we hopefully will, pass on and inspire people, because you're doing a fantastic job. We know you are, and we know it's hard. So these are some of the passions that we'll look at, that hopefully one day we're not like Shylock just wandering off into the street not knowing what his life is going to look like. Or
we're not Ono.
No, exactly
from
right.
Artist wondering, was his life a life worth living, and what does he do in reconciliation of his past?
Exactly. And I guess that's a good way to look at it. We've often been on that bridge of hesitation when it comes to starting something like this, because no one gives the push. But
it's easy to fall into the tortoise trap.
Exactly. But look, we're moving forward with this. We're hopefully going to be bringing out content for you guys for the benefit of everyone that is listening, that will eventually lead on to, helping your teaching journey, but also helping inspire your students. I think that's going to be quite instrumental.
Definitely.
But look, I think we've got a good sort of breakdown as to who we are.
I think so.
We'll probably be moving into a bit of the overview of the senior English course
definitely.
Next.
This is a very new space for us, but it's worth trying, We're so excited already. A little nervous, but very excited. But I think this is good to just give you a sense of like who we are, guys, and what we're doing and why we're in your ear. Like, who are these people? Like, we're English teachers first and foremost.
That's right.
We've been in it, and we want to help other English teachers.
It's so important. It's so important. But look, keep listening. If you've got to this point already,
well done.
Well done. Be sure to like it now. I'm joking. But look, we're going to be jumping into the overview of the senior English course next, and.
All right, so what we were also thinking in this episode was to give a little bit of an overview of, senior English. Like, what is it specifically? What are its parameters? What does the course look like? The modules? Let's get started there.
100%. Alrighty. So, as you guys know, we've got the prelim plus the HSC course. I think one of the big things is you need to start right from day dot in 11. look, it's not the be-all and end-all, but if we want the best results for our kids, we want that. So let's go into a bit of a prelim explanation and the 3-term structure. Did you want to sort of get us started with that?
Yeah, why not? So the prelim, like Adriel just said, 3-term structure. Remember that the reason it's 3-term structure is because you start term 1, 2, and 3 of the new school year, and then term 4, your seniors actually start their year 12 HSC course. All right. So what we generally have, we've got 3 different modes of English that students can study. They've got their advanced English, which is really for, your more academic students, or your students that really love English, or students that are aiming really high academically. And then that's the module where you do a Shakespeare, you do maybe some more canon text. There are a lot of contemporary texts along the way, but that's like your more top higher bands. You would then have your standard English, which is students that are, still putting in the effort, wanting to go to university as well, but maybe don't love English, or maybe have a really heavy course load. So they've made that decision to stay in the standard course. And then you've also got English studies, which is a little bit different. We'll probably have to do a separate episode on that as well eventually. English studies is really that course for students who want real world English skills, and they have plans to go into a trade or a job full time, and it's actually a really beautiful course in its own right. Very flexible, doesn't have that same academic rigor as your other two. Also has a possibility of sitting a HSC exam, but I think maybe that's a conversation for another day. I would say when you're looking at more HSC, high ATAR academic, you're looking at the advanced and the standard courses, right? Yeah. So both of them start with reading to write.
Reading to write unit, that's correct. Yeah, so our reading to write unit definitely delves into a lot of those skills that students need for writing in general. We're building on those skills. So you access a variety of texts from your imaginative, your poetic, your formal essays, speeches. Your
reflective writing.
Discursive writing, that term that, lots of people can be intimidated by.
It's actually really a great, I think once you get over that intimidation, it's a great style of writing.
You've got your film text that you might look at as well. So there's a variety of texts that we delve into, and that's your common module of your prelim course. So that will entail and then definitely lend itself into the craft of writing, which we'll jump into as Mod C in the year 12 course. I won't get too far ahead right now, but the reading to write unit is a beautiful sort of space where it's in the name. It's reading to write, isn't it? So you are given a little bit of space and flexibility in terms of the text that you would like to show your kids. I know we've done some fantastic texts in both standard English and advanced English over the times, but there is a lot of flexibility in that. So I highly recommend teachers in particular, when you're going through your planning phase, work towards, what are the skills that you want your students to know? I mean, you know your students, and you make the text accessible to them.
Do they need more atmospheric writing? Do they need to look at more character development? And so you actually have the flexibility to tailor the text that you're teaching.
Exactly.
But what I love about that course is, like you said, reading to write. It's about, from the get-go, getting students to look at other texts as inspiration, as a guide, to eventually develop the tools and strategies that enable them to effectively craft. And it's like you said, it matches up to craft of writing. So, to not get too ahead, there is a connection between obviously the prelim course and your HSC course, and there is a backward mapping.
Exactly. It's 100% correct. I know one of the things that the education circles are trying to step away from is this idea of working towards an exam, but as long as we have the HSC exam at the end of it, we definitely need to have that element of backward mapping.
That's right. But also that element that keeps, especially in the new prescriptions that will come out, of that voice, that individual voice.
Exactly.
And I think reading to write and craft of writing are starting to craft that straight up, so that when you do then get into your more heavy analysis, students have already got some sort of voice they're working with, and then they're getting that next phase in.
I think so. So look, that's basically like your reading to write unit, and then we move into our mod A.
Can I just add? Sorry, and typically with a reading to write, I say typically because it is that tools and that reading, usually there's some sort of creative writing and reflection statement that usually tends to be the first assessment, right?
Yeah, generally your assessment's based based around like an imaginative types of text, which we definitely move into. Which will help you. Like I said, it's a major component, 15 marks in the HSC exam later on down the track.
Yeah, that's right, because they will do that in their craft of writing module C.
I should say 20 marks these days. I'm thinking about the old HSC,
that's it. Yeah, that's
Goodness
it.
me.
So that's you've been around the HSC block.
I've been a while for
that's it.
a little while now, although I don't look too old.
But it's good. No.
But,
looking fresh.
Hopefully. But yeah, look, then we move into our second term, and this definitely is where the space sort of transitions between your advanced and standard courses.
That's right.
You've had a bit of experience in the advanced course.
Yeah, that's right.
Teaching this. Would you like to maybe delve into what they do?
Yeah, sure. So there's then 2 more modules left over for the advanced course in the prelim section. So you'll have your module A, which is narratives that shape our world, and then you've got the module B, critical study of the text. And I'll leave the module B for a sec because that's a little bit more stock standard. But when you're looking at your module A, narratives that shape our world, again, you do have flexibility because you don't have a core set of prescribed text like you do in the HSC course. So you have options. Typically with these narratives that shape our world, it's texts that in one case have stood the test of time, but have maybe influenced, new understandings as time has gone by. And so, texts that seem to be really popular in this module, narratives, sometimes you might put a Shakespeare in there if you're not doing it module B. Your really classic poets like your W.H. Audens would, sometimes fit in here as well. You might also look at more novel-based texts. I think the beauty of the prelim is you have options, and you have options so that you can play around with this pattern and the text so that it will mimic what you do in year 12. I think that's about enough before going too deep into it.
I know with the standard course, they move into module A here, which is the contemporary possibilities. I think it's module A or B. It's one of those.
No.
I haven't taught the standard in the last year or two, so you always have to refresh yourself as teachers. And
it's good like that. We've had experience with all 3 courses, and it does enrich you as a teacher.
100%. But contemporary possibilities is awesome. And as you've been sort of mentioning, you have a lot of flexibility, with the type of text that you choose. And I guess one of the important things for us to do is continually reflect. So we used to teach, Witness, the film Witness, which was fantastic.
I even studied that in high school.
Yeah, it's quite old now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I know...
Yeah, there's a lot of people going, it's an oldie but a goodie.
You know, got old Harrison Ford there, Kelly McGuinness, all those sorts of...
Time for milking.
Yeah. But look, it was fantastic just to get kids around the idea of understanding how meaning can be shaped in different mediums. And often our mod A text there would manifest itself into our multimodal assessment task. Now, that's one of the things in the prelim course that you'll notice. Your assessment weightings are quite high.
Because you only have 3 that you're working
3
with.
assessments, exactly right. And, this would be your multimodal sort of assessment for those that are looking at an assessment mapping. It worked well as you were looking at maybe a visual text. Again, it doesn't have to be a visual text, but generally the multimodals work well with the visuals
definitely.
there.
Some sort of presentation or video or, even a podcast I've seen done before as well in this
podcasts,
space.
Viva Voces, like lots of things that people can
options.
Look at. So there's a few options that we'll delve into a bit deeper when we unpack these further. And then Mod C was, again, a critical type of study. Generally, we used to do poetry, or in the last term, we did a little bit of a novel study. I remember the old HSC texts. One of the things that we looked at was the poetry of Wilfred Owen. Which, it's fantastic. Kids always love war. Siegfried Sassoon, Wilfred Owen. These are the classics that we look at in terms of trench poetry. And look, those were some of the texts that we've sort of looked at amongst many others. But now we move into our, area of study, don't we?
Yeah, that's right. Because then... And usually once you wrap up that module B in that term 3, generally your schools will have like a prelim.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's right.
And then, again, schools have some control over how they structure this. So there's a lot of variation in the prelim course. And that's done, I guess, quite deliberately so that schools can can start building the skills and the text types and the assessment types and the knowledge that's going to be the practice run for what they're teaching them in Year 12, when, like you said, you want to start off with
the area of study. So we start off with our text and human experiences module, which is quite vast. I know as we move into the new HSC as well, we're going to be adapting a little bit and changing things up a little bit to this, but until we get there, we've still got the text and human experiences module. And again, this is your common module. It's a bit like the reading to write, I guess.
Yeah.
To an extent, where everyone does it.
Yeah, that's right. It's like what, used to be the belonging and the journeys and the discovery. Yeah,
your area of study. So this is the new area of study. Many of you already know this. And I guess this is one of the parts of the exam when I look at the HSC course now. Now stuff matters for students, and this is when they do need to drill in a little bit because as they start to get into the back end of this term, you'll generally have your first assessment task, and that's where our rankings and our marks and everything come into play, and this is where things matter. So, your prelim, I don't necessarily like to tell students, but it's a clean slate, isn't it, when you start the Year 12
exactly,
course.
Absolutely.
Clean slate in terms of marks, but not clean slate in terms of the skills that you have used.
That's right.
That you now need to build on.
That's right. Which works in their favour if they're working consistently,
Exactly.
Something that I know both of us often tell any senior student class that we have from the get-go is remember that when your ATAR at the end gets calculated and they're picking your 5 best subjects, remember that English is always counted. Whether it's your best or your worst.
That's right.
And I always say to them, I would love for you to make that your grandest priority because I'm the English teacher.
Exactly.
But whether that's the case or not, the reality is every student is examined by that. That's one of the great, equalizers in a sense in their results. So it's very important.
Exactly.
That they're trying to put in the time and seeing it as that priority that it is.
Yeah. And you can also encourage students when you do start this to think about how many different units or different KLA subject areas that they're going to be using these writing skills in.
That's so true.
If they're developing their writing skills well in English right now, it can translate itself across all the other subjects and definitely help in those spaces. So it's something that we'll highly encourage students with.
I say to them, even if it gives you that added confidence to participate in discussion and to participate in asking and trying to consolidate, whatever concepts they're studying in whatever subject. That's sometimes we have to, spell it out for our students.
That's right. So, look, your text and human experiences modules across standard and advanced, your text will vary. This is where you will also start to see the little bit of a difference between the two levels of English. I hate this term where, students say they start off in advanced English and I'm just going to go down to standard English. I often phrase it as you're moving across because the level of work required in standard English is the same as the level of work required in advanced English. The only difference I see is that the accessibility of the text is a little bit different.
I agree.
So
especially if those standard students are aiming for that band 5 and 6.
Exactly.
We've got to work.
Exactly. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. We've had a few amongst our ranks in standard English, which we've been privileged to teach a few of these students. And, the stats may say it's not possible. Less than 1% of the standard English students in the state will hit that band 6 because of the nature of the common module.
That's right,
but
the way the paper is set up.
The paper's set up and all this sort of stuff. Okay, I do want to sort of mention this. At the end, we'll talk a little bit about the paper and the structure. Look, common module is all the students do it from studies all the way through to advanced English. And look, the variety of texts are now a bit more prescribed. However, this is where you will sit down with your staff necessarily and backward map.
Definitely.
What is it that we want to get out of it? What is our assessment schedule going to look at? And again, we're just giving an overview right now, and we'll delve a little bit deeper into this as we get into the modules.
Just so they're aware that there are, certain also combinations, certain assessment types that NESA, I don't want to say the word dictates in a terrible way, but, as the body,
it's required,
body,
isn't it?
That exactly. Maybe that's a better word. Requires of us. So you're right. There is that very deep element where you as
as professionals are planning for the best outcome for your students.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And you like we've said this already, you know your students. You're the master in the classroom.
That's right.
So you'll know what texts are accessible to them.
Yeah, that's
obviously
right.
what's available to you as well.
Plays a role, that's right.
That's going to be important. And I guess that's one of the other functions that we're going to serve you guys with is, hey, we're teaching this. You guys have been in the classroom for a while and have taught a variety of texts.
Yeah.
We'll be able to direct you guys to maybe some of our free resources and maybe some resources down the track.
Yeah, because we've taught
will
quite few different variations along the years in both courses.
That's right. So hopefully you're pumped and excited about that. We're so willing to just share our knowledge and share a few things with you guys to get you started. And, hopefully you're enjoying this and along for the journey with us.
That's it.
Yeah.
And, we're hoping you like what you're hearing and you stick around for, our next episode where we will start looking in the modules.
Yeah.
So we've been, planning very deliberately. We'll probably, need to start with that module A or that module B because usually that's where schools are in this time of year.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we move on to, did you have anything else to say about the common module?
No, I think
particular?
That's definitely its own episode.
Yeah. Honestly, all of these will be across
even.
multiple
that's it.
episodes, modules, whatever it might be down the track. But then we move into Mod A, don't we?
We do.
Mod A or B, depending upon your school structure.
Yeah, that's right.
Generally, we follow the Mod A process. Any experiences there that you...
Well, in the advanced course, I've had certain years where we start with the Mod A and then certain years where we start with the Mod B. Yeah. If you're intending to use that big school holiday gap to, I don't know, perhaps read a dense novel or something. You know what I mean? Like that's where we say that's why you're all experts because you know what your school's texts are, what you have chosen, what your intricacies are.
Where your trials are located.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. How could we? Yeah, that's right. That's a whole other week's worth of conversation. Yeah. And that's where sometimes a lot of, when we start teaching senior English, that's what's daunting because in some ways you feel like I don't have a lot of options, but then in some ways there are a lot. And it's almost like, well, what do I follow as like a strict structure and what do I make my own choices on? And that's where we say you work as that team,
that's
don't you?
Right. And that's one of our functions is hopefully to help you guys navigate that, navigate that stress. Hey, my head teacher is saying this or the school structure is like this.
Yeah.
We know that those are your parameters
definitely.
Now. How can we approach this? And hopefully we'll be that ear to help you guys out a little bit in these different spaces because we've been exposed to multiple types of time frames and parameters.
Yes, like a lot of co-ed secondary public schools, you have a lot of changes,
exactly
things. Dynamic nature of things. So I think we'll have a lot of good insights there.
Just to help you along the journey and how do we get success, in all those areas. But
So just to maybe wrap up now with those modules. Yeah, sure. So if you're looking at module A for advanced, you're looking at textual conversations. And I guess if you're comparing it to prescriptions of the past, it's more of your like comparative study, intertextuality study. Textual conversations is a really good module because it has sort of options. You have your, I guess, textual conversations that are more deliberate. They're more of a like dialogism, you know what I mean? So they're very text speaking deliberately to one another, like your Plath and your Hughes, for example, which I love.
Exactly.
I often say to my kids to try and hook them. I'm like, all right. And I don't know because I'm not in this world. I say to them, I don't know anything anymore. We're old now. We've passed that youthful knowing what's in pop culture. I say, who are the two biggest stars now? I think my last example was Taylor Swift and the Travis Kelce. I was like, imagine them on Twitter or X. Imagine if they were to break up, if things were not to work out, imagine the exchange between the two of them about the demise.
Oh, goodness me.
And the facets of their breakdown. It's literal he said, she said.
Yeah.
We have to find those little hooks.
That's right.
We have to find them.
That's right.
So you have that kind of combination, but you also got you have the Al Pacino's Looking for Richard with, Shakespeare's Richard and texts and combinations where you're looking at the transition of ideas into new mediums and new platforms. So there's a lot of choice there as well. And again, you will pick things, based on your cohort of students, based on the accessibility, and based on what your assessments are and what your time frame is.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And I guess in the standard course, you've got quite similar sort of types of text. You've got like I wouldn't say more of a textual conversations types of text, but you're delving into a little bit of the text and, how it moves in with the Module B unit. And then the Module A unit, I think we've studied, what was it? Was it Curious? No, Module B was...
Curious Module B.
The dog in the night time.
Asian poetry.
Asian Australian poetry, language, identity and culture. I think that's the big one. So fantastic, actually. If you're looking at standard courses, there are some great voices out there in that unit.
So true.
You delve into it. It's so contemporary for our modern Australia as well, the cosmopolitan multicultural space that we have. But yeah, look, again, it all depends on what you guys are studying. And as we delve a bit deeper into each of these modules and the types of text we can look into, we'll go into a bit more depth into that. One thing I will just quickly say here is just about the exam. So the exam is 2 papers, as you know. And, we're trying to work towards that higher end result.
Which doesn't necessitate a building of exam skills.
No, exactly right. But what I will say is this: encourage your students to work right from the beginning.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, because I often use this little exercise with my kids. I say to them, it's got 5 sections. It's worth 100 marks. If you get 17 out of 20, which is all A's for each of those sections, what are you getting at the end of the exam? And it blows the students' minds a lot of the times. You're getting a mid-band 5. So it just gives a bit of perspective for students to, okay, cool. If I want to be a high achieving student, and if I'm a teacher that wants to get my students to not just the 17s out of 20s, but the 19s and 20s out of 20s, what are some of the things that, we're going to be working with? And hopefully that's what we're going to be adding value for you guys with.
And another nice little strategy that works is you can find these band descriptors online as well, like on Nessa and all that. And it's a very easy project and read them.
Yeah.
Because even if you look at the verbs and the descriptors, the students start to get a sense of, okay, that's what they're looking for. And even if they do a general comparison of where they think they're fitting in, or where perhaps maybe they've done an assessment already, where that result is fitting in within those descriptors.
No, 100%. No, I think that's fantastic. And I think we've covered a little bit of the overview of the senior English course, and we've mentioned some of those topics for the future, I think. So, plans to invite a few people on board as well with far more experience than us who have helped us along the journey, which will definitely be beneficial. But I think one of the big things we want to leave you guys with is, we will be providing resources along the way. And, if you've enjoyed what you've heard today with us, please be sure to, jump on board this journey. It's a journey. It's that term again that we look at. And look, we're excited. We're excited about what is in store and what is in plan for us. And you guys, because you're all jumping board. And it's going to be a good time ahead, I think.
Yeah, we're excited to help. And it feels really invigorating already. And we're excited to develop, that communication, that discussion, that support that, we all know how much all teachers need.
Exactly right. So I guess we can probably end it with, if you've liked what you've heard today,
yes,
I'm getting it here now. But if you have liked, and, it'd be awesome for us just to support us on our journey as well.
Definitely.
Click in on a few of the links that we've got just to show you guys what is available and what we're expecting to sort of launch there, and
reach out if you feel like one of the first things you said was don't be too scared to ask those questions, because if you're thinking, I really need like a little bit of insight here, you're definitely not the only one. So what do we say to our students all the time? If you're thinking it, guaranteed someone else is.
Exactly right. And give us a like, give us a subscribe.
That's it.
And we'll see you along the journey.
Thanks so much.
Thanks guys.
Bye.